Hello everybody, I have a special video today. As a long-time Morimit's player of 188 days, which is like 6 months, uh, I have built up quite a collection of characters. All but one actually. Uh, the cat in a hat girl tends to elude me. But in all that time, I have come across one Awaker. One creature that is worse than all the others. Someone who has deceived and manipulated the minds of those around her. Who has corrupted the innocent and youth into pulling her. And is overall just not a very good character. And today, of all days, I will explain once and for all why you should not pull or play Horla. So first things first, we are in the Ultra Realm, and we find this creature, this cretin, this false poet, you could say, okay? And there's a lot to discuss with her, obviously. And I'm gonna start with a simple kit review. Because when addressing an argument, you want to first start with your strongest points and then go on the weaker points from there. Because even though this is a video and I have all the time in the world to get to all my uh, points, that doesn't mean you will watch it. And so therefore, I'm going to lead on what I believe to be the worst aspects of this terrible, awful, no pull, worthless garbage unit. And then we're going to go into the more personal nuances of why she is the worst character in the game. And so, we're going to start by, what realm are we? We're in fucking old trash, okay? So already, if you are pulling this girl, you are making a mistake. Because you're pulling Ultra Realm units. And you know what happens when you pull Ultra Realm units? You off-rate. And when you off-rate Ultra Realm units, what do you get? You get Taint. No one plays Taint. You get Liz. Literally no one plays Liz. There is not a single person who is like a Liz main. There's like one person. Right? You get Winkle, who's pretty solid, not gonna lie. But she's like the only one. and then there's Jenkins, who, as you can see, she's plus 12. You know why she's plus 12? Because what everyone does is you just stick your selectors on Jenkins anyways. You do the same with Winkles. You know, you never pull on Ultra, because you just hit bricks, and then the characters that you do want Ultra, you just put selectors on them. You don't even need plus 12 for Jenkins, really. You don't even need OE a lot of the time. You just want her to be like E1, honestly. So the plus 12 is completely extra. So when you're pulling on Horla, not only are you making the mistake of pulling on Horla, but you're just making the mistake of pulling on a bad realm. And you just are going to be whiffing for characters that you can't even play. You're not going to be playing Tings. You're not going to be playing Liz. So even when you miss, you're still even when you hit, you're getting the worst character in the game. But if you miss, you're also getting some of the worst characters in the game. So it's just not great, right? So next we want to look at this number. There's a lot of issues just looking at the character, but the biggest one, the thing that sticks out the most when you first see this character, is very obviously her stat line. These numbers. What am I looking at here? If you see on the left, she's very clearly level 60. A level 60 unit does not have a single plus 100 stat. Look at this girl. No one plays her. Look at these numbers. They're a lot higher. Look at Tinkt. No one plays her. 200 stats. Granted, very low 100 stats, but 200 stats. Fucking Erica. Free unit. Does everything Horla will do for you, basically. We'll get to that and why that is in a minute. Look at her numbers. They're like nearly double. It's insane. Let's get out of Ultra for a minute, right? Let's look at Chaos. Let's look at Chaos Standard, you know? All hundreds. All hundred. This is 65, but like, yeah, not much higher, right? So Karen's a bit weak. Yeah. All hundreds by a lot. Way higher stats. Way higher stats. Doll is one of the worst Awakers in the game. Look, her stats are competing with her. You know who the other worst Awaker in the game is? Karo, Lei, Standard. Stat-wise, I'm talking. Just so we're clear. Stat-wise, worst Awakers in the game. Lei is the worst Awaker in the game. Horla's barely beating her out. And I have the numbers for you for at level 90, right? For Horla, we have 130 con at level 90, okay? We have 130. We have an attack of 130, and I'm rounding these numbers a tiny bit, and then we have a defense of like 115, okay? So we're just barely a few digits up from 100 with at level 90 at max stats, okay? Plus 12, blah blah blah, and a limited, you're not getting to plus 12, okay? Maybe you're a Giga Hyper Whale, but the most you're getting is level 80, okay? And that's if you're choosing to waste hundreds of valuable resources into this girl. And who would want to do that? She's worthless. You're not leveling this character, okay? Her these are the stats you're going to have. These are what are going to be screwing over. Your health pool is going to drop like 200, 300 points minimum, right? Miserable. Just compare that to Goliath. Let's look at Acor, right? Let's look at Acor. Great stat line, Rome. Look at this. He's level 65, okay? He is beating a level 90 Horla in every stat right now at level 65. At this girl, level 60, she's beating a level 90 Horla in 2 stats right now, in con and defense, which are the stats she cares about, and are the most important stats in the game. The attack, when they're not your DPS, doesn't matter as much. Miriam, level 65, has an absurdly high attack stat, has low stats overall, though, right? Beating out level 65, max level Horla, right? Kaikis, easily at level 75, just absolutely demolishing her. Double her level 60 stats. Close to double in their other ones. More 60 characters. Boom, way higher stats. Boom, way higher stats. Both of these units are beating max rank Horla, okay? Insanely weak character, okay? But now you just get to actually what does she do? And the answer to that is simple. Horla doesn't do anything. Her mechanic, her character, her kit, is this. Which, the TLDR of it, is that you have death res scaling up to a certain point, which will give you up to 20% more final damage, 20% more shield power, 20% more alien misgen, etc., in these what is called these specific emotions, and 20% is the high end of what these are, right? So what are these emotions? How do they work? Well, it's these cards. You play these cards with a leap effect, which we'll get to in a second, and they'll put you into the emotions, right? So there's a couple issues here. One, leap. We are in Ultra. This is an Ultra unit. You know who else is in Ultra? Two of the best characters in the game, Caster and Clem. You'll see that both these characters have a card called Quasar, well, a text called Quasar on their cards. Quasar is basically Leap. For all intents and purposes, it's Leap. What is Leap? Playing the first card of your turn. So, with Horla, if you want her to do something, which is 20% bonus effects, which I'll get to, you have to skip a turn of Caster scaling, of Clem scaling, of Jenkins damage, of etc. etc. All of Ultra cares about Leap and Quasar. You want to be playing these characters' cards as the first card of your turn. You don't want this other character taxing that effect. So that's what she's doing. She's taxing that effect from you. Not only is she taxing the Aerith with her one cost cards, so that's one less Aerith for your turn. That's, one less Gelit chain, for example, that you can create. That's one less to wheel pinion you can play, or etc. etc. So not only is she taxing you, But she's taxing that really powerful effect at the very beginning of the turn, that leap effect. And when you play a leap, when you play a card as the first card of a turn, you're putting it in Ultra Turn. You don't want Horla cards in Ultra Turn. You don't want to be going into your big burst turn with a card that gives you like 20 strength or like 10 alienness, etc. So now you're reducing your Ultra Turn scaling as well. That's speed up. It's all about time management. Time management. Horla is really bad at giving you this time management. Now, let's get to the emotions themselves. I already mentioned them earlier, what they do. So I'm going to explain why they suck, right? Joy is her alien emotion. It's the Carol song. This is at level 3, right? Increases alien miss gains. It also gives your whole hand retain. It also gives your Aerith retain, but the problem is you're not retaining Aerith. When you're playing this game, you're gonna realize you are always running out of Aerith. You want to spend as much Aerith in a turn as possible, be as efficient as possible. And what you really don't want to do is be holding on to dead and useless and weak cards. She gives your whole hand retain. It makes it that it's very difficult to actually be clearing your hand. And so now you want to be hoarding Aerith for that bonus effect, but you also need to be clearing your hand to be drawing your good cards to play with that Aerith, and it just doesn't work. This is a very anti-synergistic emotion. It will just cripple and brick your runs. This will genuinely get you killed a lot of the time. Next we have Fear, which is commonly considered one of her weakest emotions. It is considered common practice to just sell her Fear card very early in the run. Whether you're in Arc 1 or Arc 2, you get rid of it at the heal or shops. The problem with this is that, yeah, it's a 2 cost that doesn't really do much. It gives you a tiny bit of strength at 2 costs, very expensive, not very powerful effect. So you don't even want to be playing this card either, especially not going into this emotion. Now we have the last 2 cards, which these cards are actually extremely powerful. Grief, giving you 20% shielding and HP recovery, can be very good in certain comps where you're just trying to stall, like with Salvador, for example. I will give that to her. She is very solid support in Salvador comp. Salvador comp is not a meta comp by any stretch of the imagination. It is a very, very weak comp. And if you're not playing her with that specific interaction in mind, she is a just unplayable unit otherwise. And then this card as well is very powerful. It's Instance of Vuln, and puts you into a more aggressive, hyper-aggressive damaging state, which is how most people play her in Arc 2. And I will admit, these cards are very good. Elegy and Starmosam, very powerful cards. They apply weakness and vulnerable almost for free. So then why does she suck? Well, that's simple. You will go into any English channel, and they'll tell you, E0 Horla, one of the best units in the game. If you have already E0, you're in a great spot, her emotions are so powerful, etc. Why E0? Why does this matter? Because this is her E1. This is her first item. This is her second copy. Vuln and weakness. Simply put, if you do not have this on your Horla, she's worthless. She doesn't do anything. But that 20% shielding, only relevant in the hyper shielding, hyper stall comps. And that's only 2 comps in the game, both of which are like tier 2, tier 3. No one plays. It's Salvador and Sangha. You almost will never see a Sangha or a Salvador team. Only time you'll ever see it. And now you're not even having the weakness application that is necessary for those comps to work at E0. Because if you're at E0, you don't have the weakness. You need weakness every turn for these stall comps to even function properly, because it's all about waiting like 8, 9 turns to actually be killing while you're just tanking hit after hit after hit. And forget damage application. It's the 20% final damage. While it does sound like it a lot, it's not. Pure and simple, 20% final damage Whether you're in mid game or end game, it's not speeding up a clear. You're not killing a turn faster, because the way this game works, it's all about burst turns. And so while you are able to dish out a lot of damage in one turn, and being in anger mode might seem very good for that, the if you're actually bursting in this game, you usually there's a set number of turns you're going to take for that burst, and having Horla be in this angry stance does not make those turns come by faster. You're not killing a turn earlier. You might be playing one less card in that turn, maybe even two less cards in that turn, but you're not killing a turn faster. That's the issue with Horla, is that she's not actually speeding up your TTKs. Maybe real time, but real time doesn't matter. It's all about clear potential and being able to actually clear. And so, I mean, that's just her main cards, right? I might have been ignoring a little bit. I haven't mentioned her Rouse or her Exalt, and there's a reason why. You'll see that mine aren't leveled, and there's a reason why. It's because they don't matter. Simply put, neither of these effects do anything, basically. You'll see the numbers on her level 1 Exalt. I mean, obviously it's level 1, so that those numbers aren't real, but it's 4 different effects, right? HP, Strength, Alien Miss, or crit rate, crit damage. And that changes, basically, depending on what mode you're in, it gets enhanced. And so think of being in Snarl Saw mode, you get like 20% crit rate and crit damage, which is nice. That is solid. Add that with the final damage. The thing is, this is not necessary. This is completely unnecessary. Any properly built and structured team is capable of dishing this out. Any properly constructed team does not need the crit rate, does not need the crit damage. They have them set up in a way where they will get these kills, whether you have it or not. And the other effects, basically negligible. You either have to be in a weaker emotion, you have to be yourself into the Dirge Palm if you want to build strength or something, or if you're trying to build an Alien Miss, you have to be in Joy, and the heal is only going to be like 100, 200 max. At an Exalt level, that is very weak. There is a Covenant in this game, Chronicle. It is a free Covenant because you can get it here. 24% of the Wheel's Constitution. This heals like 100 every time you Exalt on like a random, if you just get on a random character, okay? This is better. This is equivalent to Horla Exalt effect in Grief Stance. She's losing out to a Covenant. And then, so the next thing people will say that makes Horla really good is her talent. This ability of hers, specific, that I looked at earlier. And what it is that death resistance, DR scaling. People will tell you her death resistance is so good, so powerful, etc., etc. But death resistance is not a strong stat. If you are running a feint comp, you don't need base death resistance because you have feint. You Exalt a lot. Feint is the death resistance character. She is the DR character. She just gives you a bunch of death resistance. That's what her Exalt does. Just gives you bonus death resistance. There is Celeste in Acor that just gives you a free revive if you are to get killed once in a fight. Sorry, skills. Yeah, see. Revives upon taking blah 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 damage, right? In this game, if you're not running one of those two characters, you're not trying to hit death resistance. At least not a lot. You're trying to hit 1, maybe 2 maximum. And we'll see. I'll show you that in my D-Tides this week. I got 400. It's pretty high. This is the team I hit the most death reses on. Okay. There is not a single one here. If I scroll through, that is more than 2. And I'll show you the next highest. It's here. Oh, yeah. This is the feint one. you'll see I hit 5, only 5 with Faint one. This is all the death resistance you need, right? When you have Faint on your team, easy free death resistance. You don't need to worry about Horla death resistance. This was the way I was trying to show you. You hit 1 here. So it says 138%. In R2, you have a penalty. It put me down like 40%. 40% death res is fine. It is perfectly fine. Why? Because you can always retry a fight. It's not about whether or not you clear in your first attempt. It's about whether or not you're going into this and you're able to clear. You might die in the process, and you might have to retry the fight, play it a little differently. RNG might not have been in your favor for whatever reason, and then boom, you get it. And look how much investment this took. This is 1 DR wheel and 1 death res cove. That is considered a very weak death res cove by multiple community members. 70% is considered very, very weak. A lot of community members will tell you that it's 100% or bust. I think that's insane, but that's what they say, right? And so with this little death res, you're proccing the 1 and then you're moving on with your life. With this team, which has, a lot more death res invested, admittedly, we have this death res cove, this death res cove. So together these are 100%, and then this one, which is another 50%, plus this, which is, around, you say, like 220% death res. And the only reason why you even stack this much is because Dusk and Dawn is a very powerful wheel. It is this one right here. And then Corposant was a shielder that scales with death res. So you notice, these aren't difficult things to invest in, and it put me at like 60% on the second death res, which is more than, you're going to hit more than half the time. It's all you need, right? All you need is like 120% death res to be able to proc 2 death reses in an entire run and then be chilling. You don't need the extra like 20% death res having her on your team gives you. You just need a good, strong team that's solid, that's synergistic, that works, right? For example, what does Corposant do in this team? She draws. She plays her lightning, which gives a bunch of bonus damage. She generates weakness and shields and vuln and everything. What would Horla do in this scenario? She gives you a weakness occasionally, a vuln occasionally, not reliably, mind you, not like Corposant does, where you can just press the exalt button, and then that's it. Very, very weak character, provides almost nothing, doesn't do anything. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what I'm trying to explain. She doesn't do anything. What does Miriam Goliath do? They're exalt blocks, right? You could say they're very weak characters, but they provide stats and exalt and scaling, and then just are constantly making my damage go up and up and up until 24 just kills everything, right? Look at my wave 4, right? With the Gelicom. What does Clementine do? She gives me a fuck ton of key flares. She just allows me to constantly be rousing and posseing at like almost every single turn, being able to do both. Just not getting me run out of resources. Aegis Thighs are also just the classic in that group where they provide a defensive with Aegis ult, Vuln as well with Aegis ult, and then the Thighs just does literally everything in Karo if you know anything about Thighs. These comps are synergistic, very strong, very powerful, and every unit is impactful. That's the thing. Horla is not impactful. She is a filler unit that does nothing but sit there and look ugly and be useless. And that's at E1 and E0. And so you'll say, well, Frost, this is a dupe-centric game. Characters get better when you have more copies of them. That is just how this game works. Look at your Goliath you were running. That has like +8. And you're right. Every other character in this game gets better when you have more copies of them. Horla is literally the only exception to this rule. Because her E2. Horla, Psalms, gain, retain. You have 10 hand space in this game. That gets used up very, very, very quickly. Whether you're on Tawil, who just fills your hand with cards, Gelit, which fills your hand with cards, Caster, who fills your hands with cards, Salvador, who doesn't really fill your hand, but you are trying to hold on to these cards, Thighs, who you need to make space for, all the Cath, all these characters, they don't have any space now, because At best, at best, a, a third of your hand is holding Horla cards. For what? Occasional weakness. Occasional vuln. When there's like half a dozen other characters in this game who can provide it for you. G-Doll. Corposant. Erica, right? Erica Exalt is 2 turns of weakness and vuln or something crazy like that. Clementine ult is basically pseudo vuln, pseudo weakness. So there's so Winkle, 2 cost, weakness. Like there's so many characters in this game that does what you're putting a Horla on your team for without breaking your hands, without breaking your draws. Because now we have these cards on our hand that we can't play. Oh, but sell them, right? That's the solution, right? Is just, well, you know, if the 2 cost is so bad, you can sell it. And that means you're only holding on to 3 cards instead of 4. And if you have a +2 hand wheel, then it's a quarter of your hand instead of a third. But no well-constructed comp is struggling in like the 3rd or 4th mob fight in a run. That's not how this game works. There's only 3 really difficult fights in a run, really. I mean, obviously, the way you get poked down over time can be difficult, but all the end game comps, any strong comp, all struggles in the same spots. First fight, we don't have any resources built up. Elite and boss, because you know, elite and boss are very powerful enemies. Horla is bricking you, literally bricking you, destroying your hand size in the most important, most difficult fight of the run, the first fight. She gives you the very least amount of power in that first fight, because what does she do? She has death resistance. Very useless in the first fight. You're not going to 0 in the first fight. That's how you lose a run. She has to waste one of your turns because you need to set up that emotion scaling. Okay. And if you don't have that opening hand that has the right emotion you want, then you have to wait another turn. That's potentially screwing you over. And then, while you're trying to draw your actually good cards, your Salvador 2 cost, your Tawil Wings, your Caster Plumes, any caster card really, right? Then you have to deal with your hand that can't draw these cards because you also have just a random Dirge or a random Carol in your hand, or a random Vuln that you don't plan on playing for the next 2 turns because, well, you're not doing any damage for these first 2 turns. And so you have to figure out how you actually make hand space, because you don't have any hand space because of this Enlighten. And then, a bit about the Rouse, it has a concept called Metaphor. And that ties into her E3, which is also her Exalt and stuff. Basically, it enhances the power of the emotions, but everyone will tell you that Metaphor is legitimately just like not a thing. Her Enlighten 3 basically doesn't really do anything. These effects are like actually just completely negligible 99% of the time. In Arc 2, for example, you don't even ever rouse Horla. So that's the thing. What are we looking at for Enlightened? We're looking at one very powerful Enlightened that makes the character go from completely unplayable to semi-playable. One that will literally just brick your run. That is the issue with Horla, is that she will literally just brick your run with how low her stats are, with the fact that she scales with a useless stat most of the time with death resistance, and the fact that now your hand is clogged. And then E3 that the community will agree does nothing. As well as Over Exalt, sure, can be theoretically these are very powerful effects, but one, Over Exalt means 8 copies of a character. You're playing 8 copies of a useless character, you're playing 8 copies of a useless Ultra character, which means your off rates are also going to be useless. And this basically just like isn't. This can be really powerful, but that means saving it for Exalt, right? Not good, not playable, bad unit. Don't pull Horla. Useless garbage. Do not play her. Don't touch this character. Why do I have an E1 if she's so bad? Simple. I got her off the whale banners. you could pay for getting like random characters, and this is who I got. I got 2 copies of Horla off the random banners. Okay. I have never once pulled on this girl, and I will tell everyone to never once pull on this girl. On her, if her banner comes around, do not touch it. Not worth it. And so, if you're not a meta person, right? Maybe you're more casual. Maybe you're like a waifu hunter, right? That's fine. That's I'm not gonna deny that. But what are we looking at here? Yes, be real here, people. Come on. What is this? What am I looking at? Genuine question. What am I looking at? This is nothing. Literally, it's a design about having nothing, having little. Just look at this. She has this stupid ass like tent that she covers herself with, so she looks like a fucking triangle. She's literally a triangle and then a stick in the triangle. But she has no arms. She has no body. She has nothing. Her whole character design, her whole physical design is literally not having a physical design. It's visually unappealing. It's honestly ugly. When you look at this character, when you look at this design, when you look at it closely, it's actually kind of ugly, right? Because we have this, which is like a burnt piece of paper that isn't any visual appeal there. We have like this ink splash, which just has this big emptiness. It's literally just emptiness, right? Big empty ink splash, like these red ribbons that are just sitting around here. This honestly, not even a very pretty Victorian style dress, and just like legs that like barely poke out. Like what am I looking at here? What is this? This is awful visual line. The only cool thing about her is like the flower eye. Like I'll give you that. The flower eye is kind of cool. So even just from a visual design aspect, this character isn't very appealing visually wise. And I'll show you what I have instead. I'm trying to do a thing. I'm pretty sure I don't have it showing on the screen right now. But yeah, shit. Let me see. This work? No, okay. Unfortunate. So instead, we're just gonna go to the beach event. I will show you what we could have had instead. So that's this. Yeah, it's this. Let me quickly show you what we were denied, okay? What Horla could be. To be, like, not an ugly character, okay? Yeah, blah blah blah, calf, G-Doll story. Blah blah blah. Oh wait, this is the wrong one, I think. Yeah, my bad. Okay, anyways. Here we go. We just speed through this real fast. Let me show you. Here we go. Pause here. Look at this, right? Let me see if I have a... Oh my... I'm trying to see if I have a just solid one without any of the other characters in the way. Yeah, after Faint, I believe is Horla. Also, nice relaxing jazz music in the meantime, but... Blah blah blah, yeah, Murphy. Yeah, look at this, right? This is a much prettier design than what we currently have for Horla. This is a much lovelier design. This is a beautiful character that has a nice form-fitting dress, and it looks very similar. I will give that to you. It looks very similar, but it's much lovelier. The hat, everything. This is a nice visual design. This is very pleasant on the eyes. This is not what we have to play with. This was totally should have been the summer event skin that we could have been given, and we didn't get that. We were denied that. Instead, we have this to look at instead. It's it's just not worth it. It's just not good. It is visually unappealing, almost ugly. I wouldn't necessarily call her ugly, right? That's rude, and it's not fair. She is not a ugly character design. She's not a Taint, for example. Taint is just an ugly character design. But she's not pretty. She's not appealing to look at. She's literally just physically missing most of her body. Like, just straight up, she just lacks a physical design. Does it, like, look at this. She doesn't even have a neck, right? And of course, there's more to a character than just their first appearance. There's more to a character than just their meta viability. There's also their lore. What makes the character tick? What makes Horla Horla? Who is Horla, right? Well, Horla is French. Horla is French, okay? French. You want to be playing your game? You want to be pulling for a French person? A French person from city? Literally city? A French person? You want to be associated with the French? Come on, come on, come on, come on, just not be ridiculous. Do you really want to be playing a French character? I think we all know the answer to that in our hearts, right? But you'll notice the title of the video. Horla, the false poet. Why do I call her that? What is this burnt piece of paper on her head, right? What are all these things related to her? Well, in lore, that is what she is. She is a poet, an unpublished poet. At the time of the beginning of the story, mind you, unpublished. Why? Because she's actually not a good poet, okay? She's untalented and a thief, okay? I'm the frost thief, she is the poetry thief, okay? If we look at her works, what are her works, okay? Well, I'll tell you what her works are. It's ours, okay? It's ours. She is a thief who takes credit for our hardworking genius. Keeper's hardworking and brilliant mind. If you look at these, what is this about? Oh wait, this is ordering. Oh, what is this about? This is a story about how she steals Keeper's poem and puts it as something that she publishes. She published it under her name, Keeper's poem that he created. And then what is this? This is something where she relies on Keeper's cleverness, Keeper's creativity, and uses it to create a poem. Keeper is doing the work here. Keeper is the clever poetry guy. She is stealing and uncrediting our work, others' work. And not just us. If you read her story, her lore, okay? If you read her character story that you use to unlock posses, like for all the characters in this game, Horla's, if I can find it, Horla's, The Rose's Abode, is a story about her and her sister/lover, Colette. And what happens is, she dies, and Colette, in her grief, and her love for Colette, and her love for Horla, decides to publish the poetry that they worked on together. They publishes the works, and in the future, Horla is now a ghost of a waker, is a ghost of vengeance, actual evil vengeance, right? She has come back to city, their hometown, and literally destroys everything that they built together. Destroys what's left of the garden, destroys the poem books. What you think destroys it, but no. What she actually does is steals it for her own. And then at the very end of the story, it's her becoming famous after publishing the stolen works, that completely taking the credit for everything after murdering Colette for it. Murdering her childhood best friend to steal her poems and claim them for herself, for trying to make fame or fortune from others' works, from Keeper's works, from Colette's efforts. She is a no good ghost, thief, liar, robber, murderer, and she's not even a viable unit. And now, if that wasn't enough, holy, if that wasn't enough, we have this. The reproduction frenzy. And if you think some of these are bad, if you think Goliath is bad, then you just don't know what happens in Horla's. Because Goliath's, yeah, is a pretty rough one, and but Horla's is no better. Horla is the same. Horla is arguably even worse than Goliath because Goliath just barges into your room and, well, but Keeper, Keeper, she manipulates him. She has these powers to manipulate people's emotions. She gets in your head. She literally gets in your head and manipulates you. And that's what she's been doing to all of you, to all you guys in the community. That's what she's been doing to EN chat, to everyone who plays her. She gets in your head and she manipulates you with her emotion manipulating powers. And she does that to Keeper. She first kidnaps him. She drags him into this other world of hers. Look, we go to her. We're gonna wake up in this other world. Boom. She has now officially kidnapped us, dragged us into this world of her own, to be used as she pleases. And if that wasn't bad enough, during this process, she's also manipulating our emotions, basically drugging us. She literally drugs and kidnaps Keeper to have her way with him. And he's not going to refuse because, one, he's the implication, he's been kidnapped, and two, he's not in a right mind because she has drugged him. So, she's basically forcing herself on poor innocent Keeper with her magic powers. Horla is not a good person. She is not a good unit. She is not a good looking character. And by all aspects, by all means, Horla is not just a useless garbage awaker. She is the false poet. She is, dare I say, a Horla. A Horla. She is probably the most problematic, worthless, awful, terrible, degenerate, evil character. Evil playable character, that is. Demonic, even. Awaker in this game. Not only should no one ever touch her, no one should look at her, no one should give her the light of day, no one should read her poetry. You should give this person what she deserves. Complete and total isolation from all accounts, from all conversations, from everything. She is not worthy. She is not worthy of love. She is not worthy of playtime. She's not worthy of nothing. And I hope that this dissertation has even slightly convinced you of the true horrors that is this character, that is Horla of the Ultra Realm.